On holy things, but we meditate on their awfulness, and it gives us a feeling of righteousness. No, that's not the way to go. And I'm just going to quote Jesus here. I haven't mentioned Christianity yet much. And Jesus said, love your enemies. Now, some people scratch their heads, and the word love in English and England and the West is often very debased, you know. Oh, I love that movie. Didn't you? I love ice cream, etc. And or else people just think it's continually an emotion. Compassion is not an emotion necessarily. Emotions come and go. They depend very much on the state of your digestion or how much sleep you had last night. And we know how ephemeral they are. Sometimes you can be filled with anger to the people who are closest to you in the world, and yet you still love them. Jesus was not talking about that kind of love. He was doing a bit of rabbinic midrash interpretation of the Bible, which looks at the Hebrew Bible and then takes it on a bit further. So he's commenting on the Hebrew, love your neighbor. And Jesus saying, yes, love your neighbor, but also love your enemy. Take it a bit further. Now, the word love in the Hebrew Bible is hesed. And that was a term, a legal term, used in international treaties. It meant loyalty. And two kings who may have been enemies before would promise to love each other, which didn't mean they would fall into each other's arms ecstatically, but that they would look out for one another, give one another practical help, come to their aid in time of trouble. They'd be good allies, responsible allies, even if this meant a short-term loss for themselves. And this is the kind of love we must have for our so-called enemies if we want a viable world. Now, I'm going to finish, this perhaps rather surprisingly, with the Greeks. Because we don't often think of the Greeks as religious, but of course they were. All people are religious. And at the height of their great rational Renaissance in the 5th century BCE, they devised a new genre, the genre of tragic drama. It was a competition. There was also a religious festival. Every year on the feast of Dionysus, god of transformation, the whole of Athens would come to the theater to watch a series of plays that were tragic plays that showed a human being in an agony, going through some man or woman in an extremity of pain. And usually these myths recast, the story recast one of the ancient Greek myths in the light of something that was preoccupying Athens that year, so that it was a commentary. This was a festival that everybody had to attend. They even let prisoners out of jail to see this. It was a civic duty and a civic meditation when you meditate on the plight of your city, what it's going through, what its problems are this time. And what tragedy did was put suffering on stage instead of pushing it away behind those array of guards that we put up around ourselves. You put it on stage, and you'd see this human being suffering. And periodically, the leader of the chorus would turn to the audience and say, now weep. Weep for a man like Oedipus, who had broken every taboo in the book. Or weep for Heracles, a man who'd been driven mad by a goddess, and in this frenzy, God-inspired frenzy, had killed his wife and children. People who seem utterly polluted and whom you'd avoid in ordinary life. Weep for them. And the Greeks did weep. They weren't like Western men who just sort of gulp and wipe an embarrassed tear from the corner of their eye. They wept aloud because they believed that weeping together created a bond between human beings. Because they felt that they were no longer alone in their pain. The pain was there and they could share it. And they had